Did you know that for 13 years a serial killer was hiding in plain sight in Manhattan, working as a respected architect? While the police chased shadows, this is not just a story about a killer. It is a story about a pizza crust, a Chevrolet truck, and a terrifying double life that fooled everyone. But be warned, the deeper we dig into this case, the darker it gets. Because Rex Heuermann wasn't just killing, he was building a legacy of horror. The mystery didn't start with a body, it started with a scream. On a dark night in May 2010, a 24-year-old woman named Shannan Gilbert dialed 911 from a remote beach town in Long Island. She was frantic. She told the operator, "They are trying to kill me." She stayed on the line for 23 minutes, running through the marshlands, knocking on strangers' doors, begging for help. Then, silence. Shannan vanished into the night. The police spent months looking for Shannan. They searched the thick, tangled brush along Ocean Parkway near Gilgo Beach. They didn't find Shannan. But on December 11, 2010, an officer and his cadaver dog stumbled upon something else, a skeleton wrapped in burlap. 2 days later, they found 3 more. 4 women, all buried just 500 feet apart. They were all petite, all in their 20s, and all advertised their services online. The press called them the Gilgo Four. The police realized with horror that Gilgo Beach wasn't just a beach, it was a private graveyard. As news of the bodies broke, a chilling detail emerged from the files. This killer wasn't just murdering women, he was enjoying the aftermath. One of the victims, Melissa Barthelemy, had vanished months earlier. Shortly after she disappeared, her younger sister started receiving phone calls. They came from Melissa's own cell phone. The voice on the other end was calm, male, and sadistic. He taunted the grieving sister. He asked if she knew what her sister did for a living. He described exactly what he had done to Melissa's body. He called again and again. These weren't random calls. They were calculated torture. The calls were traced to Midtown Manhattan near Madison Square Garden and Times Square, one of the busiest places on Earth. The killer was a ghost hiding in a sea of people. He knew exactly how to blend in. He would turn the phone on to make the call and turn it off before police could triangulate his signal. He was playing a game of cat and mouse, and he was winning. For over a decade, the case went cold. The Long Island serial killer became a myth, but the man responsible was very real. His name was Rex Heuermann. To the outside world, Rex was the definition of success. He was a 59-year-old architect who owned his own consulting firm on Fifth Avenue. He worked with major clients, navigated complex city building codes, and wore expensive 3-piece suits. His house in Massapequa Park was a nightmare. Dilapidated with peeling paint and overgrown bushes that hid the windows, it stood out like a sore thumb in the neat suburban neighborhood. It looked like a haunted house from a movie. But here is where it gets truly disturbing. Rex was an architect. He knew how to build things. He knew about soundproofing. He knew about hidden rooms. Investigators believe that his skills weren't just used for skyscrapers in Manhattan. There is a terrifying theory that somewhere in that cluttered house, or perhaps in a location we haven't found yet, Rex built a soundproof space, a place where no one could hear a scream, a place where he could take his time. Inside his dark office, when he wasn't designing buildings, Rex was building a digital profile of a monster. He created fake email accounts under names like Springfield Man to search for horrific things. His search history was a window into his twisted soul. He searched for torture, bound women, and disturbing child pornography. But most telling of all, he was obsessed with himself. He searched for Long Island serial killer updates over 200 times. He searched for, why haven't they caught the Gilgo killer? He was monitoring the police investigation, watching them watch him. He felt superior. He thought he was smarter than the FBI. In 2022, a new task force was formed. They decided to stop looking at the bodies and start looking for the vehicle. Buried deep in an old witness statement from 2010 was a tip that had been ignored. A witness had seen a dark-colored Chevrolet Avalanche truck leaving the driveway of a victim shortly before she vanished. It was a common truck, but when investigators ran a database search for Chevy Avalanche owners in the Massapequa area, one name jumped out: Rex Heuermann. Suddenly, the pieces clicked. The calls from Manhattan? That's where Rex worked. The calls from Massapequa? That's where Rex lived. The cell tower data matched his movements perfectly. But circumstantial evidence wasn't enough to convict a wealthy man. They needed biological proof. They looked at the bodies again. On the victims, they had found degraded hairs. But these hairs didn't belong to the killer. This is the most shocking part. The hairs belonged to females. DNA analysis revealed that one hair likely belonged to Rex's wife, Asa. Another hair found on a different victim belonged to his own daughter. Rex had transferred his family's hair onto his victims because he was living in a messy house and didn't clean his clothes. He was unknowingly using his own wife and daughter as a shield, carrying their DNA to his crime scenes. But to prove it, they needed Rex's DNA to link him to the hairs. The surveillance operation began. It was January 2023. Detectives shadowed Rex through the freezing streets of New York City. They watched him interact with clients, laugh with colleagues, and act completely normal. They needed his trash. On a cold afternoon, Rex bought a pizza. He stood on a sidewalk in Manhattan, ate a few slices, and did something millions of New Yorkers do every day. He threw the crust into a public garbage can. As he walked away, a detective moved in. He put on gloves and retrieved the pizza box. The lab rushed the sample. The DNA from the saliva on the pizza crust was a match. Not just a match, it was a definitive link to the male hair found on the burlap sack from 2010. The architect was the butcher. On July 13, 2023, the end came swiftly. Rex was leaving his office, briefcase in hand, blending into the crowd. Suddenly, men in tactical gear swarmed him. He was handcuffed against a wall, looking stunned. He simply asked, "Is this about the Gilgo Beach thing?" Simultaneously, police raided his house of horrors in Long Island. What they found shocked the world. Behind a locked metal door in the basement, Rex had a vault. Inside were over 270 guns. Rifles, handguns, scopes. He was preparing for a war. They also found a disturbing, unfinished room in the basement. A room that didn't fit the rest of the house. Was this the soundproof chamber he was building? Was this where he planned to take his next victim? His wife, Asa, was blindsided. She filed for divorce days later. She had no idea that while she was away on vacation, her husband was bringing victims into their home. Rex Heuermann now sits in a cell facing life in prison without parole. He remains silent. The Gilgo Four finally have a name for the man who took their lives. And it all ended because a man who spent 13 years covering his tracks, a man who thought he was a genius architect, was brought down by a witness, a Chevy truck, and a leftover piece of pizza. Justice, it seems, has a strange way of being served.